Hi, I'm Stella, and I go to Oak Bay High School. I'm in Miss Watson's grade 9 English class, and I'm enjoying it very much. I have especially enjoyed learning about the poetic devices and all about the First Nations cultures and traditions. In this video, I'm going to be reading some of my poetry and describing how this relates to the First Nations cultures. Definition of power: a leader, a chief, unchangeable as a meteor shower, healer of grief. Limitless possibilities under its wings, soaring and exploring the world from above, flying through a kingdom suited for kings, bringing courage and wisdom, and don't forget love. Independent and silent, it glides through the sky, endlessly flying with its dark gray eyes. In my poem, I used the simile unchangeable as a meteor shower because in the First Nations cultures, the raven is curious and adventurous and nobody can change the way he behaves. In my poem, I used rhyming scheme A-B to make my poem more dramatic. In my symbol poem, I was describing a raven. The raven is very symbolic to the First Nations culture because the raven symbolizes power and leadership. In the First Nations cultures, it is said that the raven is the representation of foresight, courage, and wisdom. The raven also teaches the people right from wrong. It's almost that time again. I walk to the longhouse. All I hear is rain. It's as quiet as a mouse. But not for much longer. My tribe will be here soon. And as one we are much stronger because we chant the same tune. Always a celebration, we gather together, no matter the duration, no matter the weather. And we celebrate all night, all of us filled with nothing but delight. In my poem, I was trying to share the message of First Nations cultures and traditions. These are always happy events, and I tried to give my poem a very happy atmosphere. The First Nations cultures are very important to them, and I wanted to represent how they feel when they celebrate these things together. In my poem, in line 4, I used the simile quiet as a mouse. I thought this better described the mood of my poem, and I thought it made my poem much more dramatic. There is only truth. Lies blind our reality. Honesty frees us. In this haiku, I wanted to talk about the grandfather teaching, honesty. The grandfather teachings are very important to the Aboriginal people, and I wanted to talk about one of my favorites. I used honesty because, in my opinion, honesty is one of the most important. Because if you don't tell the truth, everything else becomes much more difficult, and it can feel like the world is weighing down on you. In my poem, I used lies blind our reality, which is personification. I used it to help convey the theme in my poem. Whenever needed, courage guides our path to peace. It never gives up. I used alliteration in my poem to make it more dramatic and help convey my theme. In my poem, my second haiku poem, I wanted to share the theme of how important courage is. I feel like when you have courage, you can do anything, and First Nations feel unstoppable when they have courage. I stand tall for my land. I stand proud for my people. I stand strong for my culture, because it's all I know. In this poem, I was trying to convey the theme of the First Nations culture pride in their traditions. Even though we tried to steal their beliefs from them, they continued with pride because the First Nations love and accept everything about each other. In line 5 of my poem, I used alliteration to make my poem more powerful and help convey my theme. I soar through the kaleidoscope of sunlight when my eye catches something not quite right. Children being dragged away to do something called prey. When a wall hits me out of nowhere, strong as a black bear. And now just like the children, I'm falling. Whatever those people say they're doing, it's appalling. And we call out, but people act like they don't know what we're talking about. Somehow we're alive. Somehow we survived. On our own. You say you understand, but you don't. It's not just a broken wing. Don't treat us like we're nothing. Your actions still haunt my every move. What was it you were trying to prove? We're not the same as we were before. No one is. But we survived. We survived. In my poem, I was trying to describe what happened when the kids would go away to residential schools. I used this from a raven's perspective, going through kind of the same similar situations that the kids went through. For an example, when a wall hits the raven, it's kind of how the kids would be unexpectedly taken and would not see it coming. I continued to give examples throughout my poem. Another example would be, and now just like the children, I'm falling. This shows how the children would not be able to take what was happening to them in the residential schools, and a lot of children died while they were in there, and that would be them falling because they cannot handle it anymore. One of my most powerful examples is when it says it's not just a broken wing. That insight is to how the bird didn't just break a wing and how the bird has emotional trauma that will probably stay with the bird forever, the emotional children that will stay with the children forever just from being in those terrible schools. In the first line of my poem, I used a metaphor, kaleidoscope of sunlight. I used this metaphor to better describe the setting of my poem. In line 5 of my poem, I used personification to better describe what happened when the raven hit the wall. In line 6 of my poem, I used the simile, strong as a black bear, to describe how strong the wall was. In the last line of my poem, I used repetition to make my poem more dramatic and more powerful. Thank you for watching my video. I want to thank Sophie and Maddie for keeping me inspired, and I want to thank Starla Anderson and Miss Watson for teaching me all about the Aboriginal cultures and traditions. And lastly, I want to thank Chella for keeping me motivated.